Today I'm brewing the curious Polish beer style of Piwo Grodziskie, and I'm gonna figure out what to do with this.
Think something new under sun. You can't take back them things you're already done.
Hello, my name's Martin Keane, taking the Homebrew Challenge to brew 99 beers. You know, if I was left to my own devices, I'd just be brewing the same beer styles over and over again. Belgian triple, Irish stout, English bitter, German lager, that sort of thing. Taking the Homebrew Challenge means I get to brew stuff like this Polish beer, Piwo Grodziskie, otherwise known as Gretze. So this one, I've actually delayed opening the bag, which has come straight to me from Atlantic Brew Supply, and that's because I think there's going to be quite an interesting smell from this malt. Oh, and yes, there is. So today's recipe uses only one malt in the mash. And what is that malt style, you may ask? Well, you can't smell it, I can. And I can tell you it smells a little bit smoky. This is oak smoked wheat malt. Because this is all wheat malt, I do have some rice hulls here. I'm going to throw a very inexact amount in, a couple of handfuls. Just helps to make sure that the water continues to flow and recirculate well through this mash bed. Now this malt can be mashed via a step mash if you're going by tradition. You can spend hours on your step mash, but I'm taking the easy shortcut and I'm just mashing this at 152 Fahrenheit or 67 Celsius. So while that's mashing, let's have a very short chat about the ingredients for today's beer. So, you ready with your pen and paper to write down all these ingredients? Well, original gravity, it's low, it's very low. I'm going with an original gravity here of 1030, around about 3% ABV for this beer. And it is a smash beer. So I mentioned there's only one ingredient in the grist, that is oak smoked wheat. And I'm using Hallertauer as my hop. So this is a pretty straightforward beer to brew, but you're still going to get some of that complexity with the fact that it is a wheat beer, so it's going to have that pleasing mouthfeel and also that oak smoked quality as well. Now, Piwo Grodziskie is a Polish beer. In the 1700s, this beer was the most popular style in the country, but by the 1990s, there were no commercial versions to be found. It had, in effect, gone completely extinct. Now, in 2010, the Polish Association of Homebrewers was founded and began a campaign to revive the style. So, while still obscure, the style's back from the dead and mashing away in my brew kettle. Now, this beer, despite being quite low in gravity, is fairly well hopped. As I mentioned, I'm using Hallertauer for my hops, and we're going to get to about 30 IBU here. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to put one bag or an ounce of Hallertauer in at the start of the boil, so at 60 minutes, and then another bag goes in at 15 minutes. Now, I've put a good number of brews through these two spike fermenters now, and I'm really getting the hang of using them. I think the only thing that I could really do with improving in my process relates to actually getting stuff in and out of them, particularly as it relates to cleaning. So take this CF5 for example. This is empty, drained of beer, and I need to clean it. This thing is not the easiest thing to move around. It's quite big and it's connected to a bunch of stuff. I've got my Glycol here. I've got my temperature probe. I've got a heating mat plugged in as well. So if only there was a way to clean these things in place. So enter the CIP ball. CIP is clean in place. Basically, you provide this with water and it will spray it out the bottom here and give everything a good clean. Let's give it a try. So I've hooked up my CIP ball into a port in the lid here, and then just attached this attachment here so I can connect a hose to it. I've also removed the temperature probe and replaced it just with a bit of tubing here. This is just to make sure that we don't get any kind of vacuum in here. So this is really as a vent. What I'm going to do now is get some water into this and just sort of flush it out by running hot water through the CIP ball. And as that water's going in, I'm going to drain it out of this bottom port. That seems to be running quite clear now, so that's probably got the worst of the gunk out. I've now added about a gallon of warm water, and to that I'm adding 2 ounces of PBW, which I'll just pour on the top here. And I've hooked this up to be a recirculating system. So at the bottom here, we're going to go into my brewing pump. The pump is again going to push the water back out through the CIP ball again. And I'm just going to recirculate this through the pump for about 30 minutes. Well, it's noisy, but hopefully that's doing the trick. And by the way, this vent, I feel air coming out here, so I guess that bit's important. Now, after 30 minutes, I drained all of the PBW out just at the bottom here, and then I added some water through the CIP ball to kind of clean everything out. I flushed that through as well. Since then, I have put some more water in and a little bit of star sand, and I was recirculating that for a few minutes as well. So now what I want to do is, I still don't want to move this thing, now it's already clean. So I want to get rid of the star sand that's in here and replace it with lovely beer. And speaking of lovely beer, the beer has come out with the expected original gravity of 1030. So now I'm going to get it transferred in here. So first of all, let's drain the PBW out of this thing. I need to remove the vent that I'd added earlier. And I'm going to take out the CIP ball, but just leave this connector still on the top. So now I'm going to go out of my plate chiller and into here. Nice, I didn't have to move anything around, that's very handy. Okay, last thing that we need in here, oh, some yeast. And well, this bit does not need a very expressive yeast. All of the expression is really coming through that smoked wheat malt. So I'm going to use German ale. This is Wyeast 1007 and ferment at about 68 Fahrenheit or 20 Celsius. And I'm going to squeeze this in through here. Just going to add an airlock to the top. That's it, I'm done. So I have a new taster. Lauren is just refusing to try these smoked beers. So Evan, I'm hoping maybe your palate might appreciate some of these things.
I can pretend. Wasn't there some controversy with a previous smoked beer you did?
Yes.
Because you used too much. Was it smoked malt or was it something else?
Yes, it was. I used cherrywood smoked malt, and I used almost 100%, but not quite, and that was way too much, way too much. But this style is supposed to use 100% of smoked oat malt.
I mean, it looks good. Not heavily carbonated, sort of like hazy, can't see through it, but I haven't gone for a smell yet though.
Yeah.
Should it smell very smoky?
It will smell smoky.
Okay.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, it smells smoky, but not as like bonfire-y as the previous smoked beers.
Right. Okay.
Alright, so we should just try it then, I guess.
I think it's time. Yep.
It's not great, if I'm honest. It's just...
It lingers. Can you still feel in the back of your throat that smokiness?
It's not super strong. Me looking at it makes me think it's going to taste a certain way. And then when I taste it, it's just... I'm looking at this and it's like, this could be like a sour or maybe like a lighter wheat beer. And then it goes down and it just completely... Because it looks really good. But I do think it is drinkable. I do think it's light enough to where, you know, the other smoked beers that you had before where it's just like you didn't even want to drink it anymore. I feel like if this came on a flight or in a small amount or something like that, you could get through it. It's not bad. It's not bad. I mean, I just, it's not a flavour I'd probably pick, but it's very drinkable. I think actually no, there's a good point now I've had about that much. I think the smokiness goes away. It's strongest on the first sip by far.
Well, when the smokiness has gone away, when you sort of got over the initial shock of the smokiness, it's actually just quite a light, pleasant drink.
It's very light.
Well, I think it's safe to say of the 3 smoked beers, this has probably been the best of the 3. I like wheat beers in general, and even if it's smoky wheat, I think I still quite like it. Next week, I am moving back to making a lager, which I'm actually pretty excited about because it's been a long time since I've done one of those. But until then, thank you for doing the tasting. I'm glad we found a smoked beer that's tolerable.
Is this where we do a cheers?
Yes. Well, cheers.